Did you hear that?
Perfect. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you guys all for coming. I'm really excited you're here. I know one of the things that I get a lot of emails and like just questions about is entering shows, attending shows, and awards. So we're kind of going to break a discussion up around those three topics. So the first part, we're going to focus on entering and attending shows, and then we'll talk about championships and year-end awards in the second part. And then toward the end, we'll open it up to any miscellaneous questions that you guys might have that don't really fall into any of those categories. So I'm also going to be taking some notes that in case you guys have questions that I didn't already think might come up, and then we're going to post those afterwards if you need to reference them or look at them later, or we can use them to add to any like bullet point fact sheets we do.
Well, they'll be on the things that she puts the notes together will be on the schooling show tab on the website.
Yeah, so you guys can look back at them for reference.
Cecelia, can you introduce yourself to the new members so they know who you are?
Hi, sorry, I'm Cecelia or Cece. You'll probably see me at one or two shows this year. I work for Chuck Swan, so I'm usually behind the camera. But definitely crosswinds and the championship shows, I'll be there. And I try to get to Silverwood when I can because that's the closest.
Yeah. She's the queen of schooling shows. I'm Molly Fine. Yeah. and I'm the president, so I just do a lot of stuff. Okay. Anyway,
she helps everyone stay organized.
I get a lot of the calls too about the schooling shows.
Yeah.
Because my name is all over the website. So
yeah.
Anyway, I'm here as support. It's Cece's show.
So also on the note sheet that I'm making, I'm going to try to include links to areas on the website where you might be able to get some more information or where information will be updated if things change. So you can always reference things that way too. So the first thing I wanted to touch on, because it's probably the first thing you guys are going to do, is how to enter shows. And because each of our shows in the series is self-managed, they're all a little bit different. So it's really important to look on their show bills and see how they prefer you guys enter their shows. Some people use online entry, some people still use paper entry. So just to double check all the details before you do.
Now you'll find the show bills in two places. Yeah. One place will be on the calendar on the website. That is it's a Google Calendar, and the other is under the second tab under schooling shows.
Yes. And it's really nice too, as we get more information updated, it'll list the facility, the date, have a link to click on for their show bill, as well as the judge when we find out who the judge will be. So you guys can kind of sort things through that way too. Yeah. And the other thing is that only shows listed in those two places are eligible for IDCTA awards and recognition because they've paid our entry fee to be part of our program. I know there's a lot of other options for schooling shows in the areas, and they're not always recognized by us. So it's really important to double check that list in case you want to use scores for anything. Any questions about entering shows?
You do not have to.
I would add that on the IDCTA website, there is also a list of different forms. There is always the IDCTA entry form there available, and that's your default entry if you can't find anything else.
Yes.
Right.
For schooling shows.
And that should have all of the basic entry requirement information on it for you guys to reference. If a farm requires something else, they usually will list it on their show bill so that you'll know that at the time. So
all the show bills are currently posted. The judges are not yet because we haven't gotten up a lot of them. But all the show bills are there. And one of the other things to remember about this is that when you start planning your show year or show season, be sure that you look ahead as Cece was saying, because if you don't, you might miss the deadlines on ones that are paper. And if it's paper, it's going to take a little bit longer to get to them than it is when they do them online. Yeah. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Most of the schooling shows require you to have your stuff in before the closing date.
And I'm trying to post reminders on our Facebook page about 2 months in advance of each month set of shows. So I think the May shows I posted last week. And then I'll post a reminder every 2 weeks. These are the upcoming shows, just to help keep you guys on top of what might be coming up that you could be interested in. So the second thing after entering a show is probably going to be attending the show. And a lot of people get really nervous. I know when I was showing a lot, I would get super, super nervous. So one of the tips that I like to use is if they were close enough to my barn, I would actually drive out in my car to see how to get there, to see what trailering and turning around is like. And then if I'm able to, I'll ask to see like stabling. The horse I had was a bit of a jerk. So we had very particular stabling, and it was super, super helpful. That the farm managers and the show managers are really responsive to questions, and usually they will let you come and like see, especially if it's not a super busy time or if they're open for like a tour. That was always really helpful. And really don't be afraid to reach out to any of them. They're used to answering questions. They know everyone is super new and excited, but might not have a ton of experience. So they're always very, very helpful. Let's see here. Oh, the other thing is I know a lot of people offer options for both trailering in and stabling. So just kind of getting the lay of the land is helpful too. Knowing like if you go ahead of time, seeing where the speakers are so you can hear announcements and where the show office might be if it's not located in the barn. That's always a good idea too. Oh, thank you. So once you get there, depending on how you like to set up, I like to get there super early, but that's just because I'm usually a neurotic mess. If you're a little less of a neurotic mess, you might need time. But I would always double check things like tack and apparel. Our schooling shows do not require you to use USDF sanctioned apparel, so you don't have to ride in a jacket, you don't have to ride in tall boots. We do ask that you ride in at least a collared shirt with sleeves. It could be short sleeves, could be long sleeve, but they do want you to wear a collared shirt. It's just basic. Could be any color. Could be button up, could be zip, could be some shirt.
Yeah, no t-shirts or
Yeah.
what do you call them? Tank tops.
Like tank tops.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I think that I'm universal in this, but our shows, we don't allow anything with like words, no,
Yes.
no words on the shirt, you know, expressions.
Or advertisements, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Can I go back to what you said about hauling in?
Sure.
Because this connects to the sign-in sheet. It will often say, are you hauling in or are you stabling? If you have a haul-in fee, this is per horse. This is not per trailer.
Yes, exactly.
So be very careful with that, because if you have 6 people in your trailer and you think you're only going to pay for 1 horse, they're going to dock you and make you stop and get your stuff straightened out.
Yeah. Yeah. And usually too, if you do like a groom's stabling area, like just an extra stall for like getting things ready, they'll only put that on one person's like ticket. So if you need to split it out between multiple people, you'll have to do that yourself.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And the instructions that Cece's giving are great. If you are traveling with a large group, there will be a different dynamic.
Yes.
And for some of us that travel distances, you can't necessarily check out the stabling, which is a great option, but not a reality if you're driving 2 hours to the show. So taking that same advice, be sure you get to the grounds either the day before or with ample time for you to settle in, you know, so that you can go through those motions.
And if you're hauling with Denise, she's a fantastic resource. She's been to most of our showgrounds, if not all of them. So she could always answer some questions for you too.
And if you're hauling in, it's really, and you can get there, it's really good to know where the haul-ins are going to be, so that you're not, you're not driving around trying to figure out where you're supposed to be parking for a haul-in.
And then getting stuck. Yeah. Or having to back up in a trailer you might not be comfortable with. Yeah. So circling back to show clothes, we talked about shirts. You can wear any type of breeches, pull-on jods. I've seen some people use like leggings, like athletic pant leggings, but no blue jeans, no like baggy jeans. They have to be like riding jeans just for safety purposes. And then for boots, you could wear zip-ups, you could wear hunter field boots, you could wear half chaps and paddock boots. We just ask that if you do the half chap and paddock boot option, the chap and the boot are the same color, so they kind of blend in. Usually helps you look a little more professional.
And they should be the same color.
Yeah.
Both.
Yeah. Yeah.
Both of the half chaps should be the same color.
Yeah, I've accidentally done that before. Or I had two with different colored piping.
Yeah.
I had a comment on that before too. Let's see here. In terms of rider accessories, if you are wearing a jacket, we do ask that you wear like a stock tie or have your collared shirt zipped all the way up. You could carry if you use a dressage whip or spurs or a jumping bat, those do have to follow USCF, USCA regulations. So just make sure they're in the length requirements. And then for championships, you have to ride them without spurs, without a whip, and from memory. So that's a big thing too. So.
What she's referring to is that you can have a reader for your tests. If you're a little bit unsure, I used to have a reader, when I was nervous about the tests the first time I would do them, because sometimes when something happens, your brain sort of freezes, and having a reader there gets you back on track. So.
Yes. And if you're going to use a reader, if you can practice with them ahead of time, that's usually good too, because then you can mesh down your timing a little better. Because they're not allowed to repeat anything that they've already said. So if one of you gets ahead of the other, it doesn't work out.
You can be eliminated for coaching if they reread something on the test.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And most judges at schooling shows will either make a comment or give you a warning before eliminating you.
Right.
But they do try to follow USDF, USCA regulations in terms of judging requirements as closely as I can. Another one that I've seen come up as a penalty at shows quite a bit is if they have a bell or a whistle or a car horn or whatever tells you to get in the ring, you only have a certain amount of time to get in the ring. And
45 seconds.
Well, it's different for eventing too. So.
Oh.
Yeah. So just make sure you know how much time you have to get in the ring. And if someone doesn't hear the bell, if you're on the sidelines, you can always be like, bell, and then go in. So, because, if you're focused on something else, sometimes it just doesn't make it in. But yeah, that's a big one too. And then also, once you're in the ring, depending on what your test requires, don't forget to stop, don't forget to salute, and do that at the end of the test always.
And you should salute with your right hand without the whip in it.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. If your horse is doing something untoward and you don't feel safe dropping the reins, you can always just nod too. So, but at that point, you might want to just get out. So, I've had a few of those too.
One other thing that you need to remember is that if you have polos or bell boots on your horse, okay, they have to be taken off before you go into the. This is for the dressage ring. They have to be taken off.
Yes.
That's a rule.
An automatic elimination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're wearing spurs, they have to be on the right direction. You can't have them upside down.
Yeah. Most mini events are pretty good at having someone who checks tack, who will let you know ahead of time if something's wrong, so you have time to fix it. I don't always see those kind of helpers at dressage and combined training shows just because they're usually not required. But for many events, there's a lot more regulations and things like that. So there might be someone doing tack checks. If you have any questions, you can always ask at the show, especially if the judge is on a break or you catch the show manager or show secretary. They usually have a radio. They can radio the judge in between rides just to clarify things too. Yeah. All right. Let's see here. Anything else at the show question-wise? No? Pretty good. Okay. So this is definitely where I get the bulk of the questions, and that's awards, because that can be very complicated and very overwhelming, especially if you've never done them before. So I'm going to start by talking about qualifying for championships, and then we'll move into year-end awards after that. Those are the two big categories. So the first one, our championship shows are conveniently both at the same location this year, which is Silverwood Farms. Dressage and CT is September 16th, I believe, and then mini event is October 6th. So those you need to be very aware of when the entry deadlines are, because if they do fill, they won't add you in after the entry deadline at all. Sometimes, very rarely, they might also close if they get too many riders. So when you're entering those shows, you have to have copies of your test that show what your score was. In mini events and CT, it has to be your final penalty points, and it needs to be either signed by the secretary or the manager or whoever's doing the calculations. And you have to provide proof of those scores with your entries. So for dressage, that is 2 qualifying scores of 60% or higher within the level that you're applying for championships at. So for example, if I was applying for intro level, I could submit test scores from A, B, or C, even though test B is the championship level for the test. I would need to submit copies of those 2 scores with my entry. So that's a big thing that we've seen missing the last few years. Not everyone's keeping their test copies, and we don't always have proof. So that's a big one. Also, your scores should be from 2 different shows and 2 different judges. That has come into question quite a bit. If for some reason you have multiple scores at the end of the season and you're still short on like a judge or something, we will try to figure out a way to get you qualified, but it's not always guaranteed, especially if the show fills. That's a big one too.
So can I just clarify our question? So this year we only need 2 shows to qualify?
Yeah, so for the championship shows,
okay,
it's just 2 qualifying scores for dressage. We did change CT to match mini events, so it's just 1 qualifying score for CTs and mini events.
And how many will you need for year-end awards in the school?
So that's where it's going to be a little bit more. For dressage, it's 4 scores. One of those scores has to be from the championship level at the test. It doesn't have to be from the championship show. So if you showed intro B at the beginning of the season, you can use that score as your highest one. And then for...
And do you need 4 different judges?
No, at least,
okay.
I think we have that in as at least
2.
2?
2.
At least 2 still, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. For dressage. For mini events and CT, it's a little bit different because we don't require as many scores. Let me just double check. Combined training for schooling show championships, 1 score. And then for awards, let's see here, 2 scores. So year-end awards for mini event and CT are now only requiring 2 qualifying scores. And those we would like from 2 different judges. But here's where it gets even more fun and complicated. If it's mini event, because there's so few left in our area, if you need a second score, it can come from a USDA recognized show, a horse trial, anything, as long as the judge was qualified. It does not have to be IDCTA recognized for that one, because we're assuming it's USDA, so it's recognized by them. So, yeah, we did a little bit better of spreading mini events out throughout the summer this year, so hopefully that will help too.
So my note to people is, when you sign up for shows, look at who the judge is, because you want to make sure you don't do your 2 shows with the same judge, because there are some judges that get to different venues, and we've had that.
The other thing is the IDCTA show on the 21st or the 23rd of June also has opportunity classes. The opportunity classes can be used in your scores.
The opportunity classes at our summer show, and then 2 of the Silverwood shows. So there's 3 shows with the opportunity to use opportunity classes. The other shows at Silverwood that aren't on the schooling show calendar do not count.
And they are on the schedule. They are
Yes.
the silver ones that have opportunity classes are on the schedule.
Yeah. And if something happens and it's a big show and there's more than one dressage judge and you wind up with a judge you've already had, that's when we'll also usually try to make an exception, but it's not always guaranteed. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially like Barrington, they usually have 3 rings going. So you're never quite sure what judge you're getting.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you come to an opportunity show and you stay for both days, they will usually try to rotate you between judges. So especially for ours, because it's a two show 1 weekend situation, you can knock out all your qualifying scores in 1 weekend.
Right. And we are very careful about rotating the classes.
Yeah.
So so if you do an opportunity class on Friday or Saturday, it's one show.
Yeah.
And if you do that another one on Sunday, it's a second show. And we try to always make sure that we have 3 judges, so we try to rotate the judges through every one of the classes.
Yeah. And the only other show we have like that this year is the Crosswinds double weekend show. So Saturday, she's guaranteed you'll have 1 judge. Sunday, you will have a different judge. So if you need to only do 1 weekend of showing, that's another opportunity.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Okay. So for championship shows, we talked about if you're in a championships class, you can't use whip, spurs, or a reader. The other thing is entering the championship classes, it's going to be a little bit easier this year because we made the distinction that the classes will be split by division. So juniors, adults, and open will all be placed separately, no matter how many entries we have. Before, we were running into a few issues when people shared horses. So before, if say a mom and a daughter shared a horse and wanted to enter the same championship level, they couldn't do that because they'd be running the horse twice in the same class. But now that they're being split out, that shouldn't be a problem, but it is something to be aware of. So if you share board a horse, someone else is in the same division as you and the same level, only one of you will be able to enter that level on the horse. So
if you share board a horse and there are the levels are different, they can only be 1 apart.
Correct.
And be aware of the limit on how many events your horse can go in.
Yes.
Yeah.
So championships are just like any other show, 4 classes max. So yeah, if you do 2 and someone else does 2, that's it. And so to clarify that as well, a dressage test counts as a round, a jumping stadium counts as a round, and a cross country counts as a round. So at a mini event, your horse is entered in 3 events. So they can only do that level that you enter them in. For a CT, they're entered in the dressage and the show jumping, so that's 2. You can enter 2 levels of CT or 4 dressage tests.
I think it's just the right size.
Yeah, that's another big one too.
56 or something. 50.
The other thing is you can enter non-championship classes at the championship shows. It's not always a guarantee that they'll run before the championship test. So if you're hoping for a practice round, it's kind of hit or miss. A lot of people try to do that too. And sometimes they get lucky. So yeah.
Lucky has a lot to do with it.
Yeah. And you have a question.
Hi, sorry, I was trying to get myself off mute.
Oh, you're good.
The only thing I just wanted to, I guess, make a comment or, like the intro B is the championship for the intro.
Yes.
And then I'm just talking for year-end awards. Then the next, if you're in first level, then you have to do training, or no, it's training levels next, right? Training level 3. It just seems like a huge gap between intro B to training level 3.
But it's 2 different awards. It's 2 different awards. It's not the same award.
Let me explain our rationale behind that a little bit. So we really wanted to have 2 opportunities for walk trot and 2 opportunities for canter classes at the shows, which is why we did both Greenies Grass and intro as the walk trot. tests, and then training in first level is the walk track canters. So, yeah.
Battlefield for a very long time. Then
Is somebody asking a question or just talking in the background?
I think it's just background. Yeah. It is a big jump. You are moving from pretty
So-
basic geometry and
I think it helps
basic
to
gates.
clarify, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
It clarifies a little bit when you understand that in the recognized shows in the
Mhm.
USDF, there actually is no showing it intro.
Right.
That has been put on for people that are learning and being introduced
Mhm.
into this discipline.
Yeah.
So, in training level, you should be comfortable with the canter, and you're showing that's the first real jump into understanding and doing what is expected of the dressage horse. It's
Mhm.
hard to kind of dummy down between the two, because once you're cantering, you need to know how to canter. So,
Right. Right.
Gosh.
And I almost
so
think
it-
that the
so-
intro C test is hard because it's not a full circle. So
right.
those departure and stop points are kind of
But that's what,
willy-nilly.
that's why it feels like a big leap, is because it is, but it's also kind of where
Mhm.
you take off.
Yeah.
But you got to remember that if you're in intro, you're the words you get are for intro. If you're in training, the words you get are for training. So
Yeah.
if you're not ready for training and you're only ready for the first test or the second test, then you
Mhm.
probably will not get an award for the training at the end of
And-
the year.
Starting in training level, but I'm saying that the awards are starting to reward at this point that the recognized shows do.
Yes. Yeah.
So to understand
Mhm.
that,
Right.
that
Mhm.
makes it a little more understandable.
Yeah.
And
And
there is
most
no
others-
intro in,
Yeah. And most other show series don't offer greenest grass.
correct,
So you might get intro, otherwise it's training and up.
correct.
Yeah. And I like that we do offer pre-starter for mini events and CT too. Or not mini events, just CT.
There's a starter now in the USEA.
Yes.
There's a starter class in the USEA in the recognized shows as well,
Mhm.
but not the what is it? Green as grass is the first one in that one.
Pre-starter.
Pre-starter. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, that's the other big thing. Be sure you know which dressage test is being used for the combined training and the mini event ahead of time. So we have specific ones we use for our championship shows that may be different from what you've seen at other shows. I will do my best to make sure that the secretaries also know which ones we are using, as we've run into those issues before. So it is listed in the omnibus and on our website, and I think the show bills for the championship shows have them listed too. So, yes, that's a big one. Usually if something happens and it's the show's fault, we will let you re-ride, but it can be quite nerve-wracking. So that's another one too. Any more questions specifically about schooling show championships? Just as a caveat, if you'd like to compete in them, we do place through we place through 8th now. First and second get prizes, so that's always fun.
Prizes, yeah.
Yeah. And we did make it so that if you win, you don't have to move up a level for 2 years. You have to win twice consecutively to have to move up a level. So that's good too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so scrolling down on my list, year-end awards, the other big one. So we kind of briefly touched on, for dressage, you'll need 4 scores. And then for minis and CTs, you will just need 2. Let's see here. Dressage, you have to have at least 1 score from the championship level or test of the level.
Highest test of the level.
Not always.
Oh, really?
Intro, it's B.
Oh, well,
And
but
greenest grass,
all the
it's-
other, I'm sorry.
Greenest grass, it's 3, I think. Yes, but usually it is the highest level. Those for dressage all have to come from IDCTA recognized schooling shows. For CTs, 2 scores. Those all also have to come from IDCTA recognized schooling shows. mini event, you can use one recognized schooling show, one USCA event / horse trial if you have to. Oh, and then we always have tip awards for schooling show too. So if you have a thoroughbred, you can apply for tip awards in the year-end awards program. We have them for schooling dressage, CT, mini event, regular dressage, and regular eventing.
Cece, can you just explain what TAP stands for
So
the
the
people that
Thoroughbred
don't?
Incentive Program is run by the Jockey Club, and it's for any tattooed off the track thoroughbred. So if your horse has a tattoo, I can either help you register them for a tip number, or we can look up a tip number if they're already registered. They have fantastic ribbons and prizes. They literally send me a giant box every year that I get to give away to people.
Yeah, they are wonderful.
Yes. And we will also have tip class or tip high points for both schooling show championships too. So even if you're not in a championship test, you could qualify for a tip at championships. So that's always fun.
Yeah. And Cece knows how to get you registered.
Yes.
And she also knows how to look you up.
Yeah.
I just got a thoroughbred and she
horses. So
yeah. I just got a thoroughbred and she registered mine.
Mm-hmm.
So
and it's super simple. If you don't know, if you can't read their tattoo, as long as you know their birth year, either their jockey club name or their dam's name, jockey club name, we can look them up. And then I just need to know who owns the horse, who's riding the horse, and then we can get everything set up. It's really, really simple. So
for her,
my
the
cat
rest
is
of it's complicated.
Let's see here. And again, at year-end awards, all championship classes, all divisions are split by junior, young rider, adult, amateur, and open. So they'll always be placed separately. And that's another one. If you are sharing a horse with someone in the same age division for year-end awards, it doesn't matter. You can both apply to those because we're assuming that you've ridden at different shows. So that's another one. Weird, complicated one.
Can we address what you just said again about the divisions?
Yes.
As someone who runs schooling shows, you will, in the busier ones, they will often divide divisions between adult amateurs and junior or young riders. Yeah. When there's a class, let's say I have training level 3 and I have 4 entrants and only one is a junior rider, they will usually ride against the adults. So, because first of all, nobody likes to just ride alone. And so we usually divide if there are 2 or more in a division.
Except now at championships and for year-end awards, we will always divide.
Right, yeah. Championships, exactly.
Yeah.
But for smaller shows,
we tried the optional division and it didn't work very well.
Yeah. So, but just to clarify, if you're not sure with the show, whoever's promoting the show, because every schooling show will have a different division. I mean, a way of doing it.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be suddenly surprised and say, oh my gosh, my kid went against all the adults or whatever. Just clarify if it looks like they are for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see here. Oh, the other thing you can do, as IDCTA members, you are eligible for the Region 2 Catherine B. Jacobs Schooling Show Awards program, which is super awesome. We have a pretty unique opportunity in our region because Miss Jacobs runs the program herself. It's technically not associated with our region. It can still run. If you are familiar with the USDF Schooling Show Awards that we had to cancel the last couple years, it won't be canceled because it's not technically associated with them. So for that, you pay a small fee per level. You submit your scores to the program, and at the end of the year, they place you against anybody else who's applied from our region at that level. And they're really, really nice ribbons. Like, I think my biggest one was 3.5 feet long. So, and it's not terrible. I think it's $25 to apply. It's not terrible at all. And you can apply after you get their scores. So it's like, you don't have to apply before your scores, which is super helpful too. But they do all the traditional levels. And then I think they group Western dressage as like a combined level. Because they usually don't get as many entries for that. Let's see. Yeah, any other questions about year-end awards? No, good. Okay. In my miscellaneous section, the only real big reminder I have is it's going to take a lot of pressure off you and a lot less stress if you renew your membership before you start showing, because then you don't have to worry about it at the end of the year.
Well, and it's also
easy.
going to be expensive. It's also going to be
Yeah.
expensive this year.
Yeah,
because
so it's easier to do beforehand.
So now's the time to get your memberships in, and you get a GMO USDF membership along with it.
Yes.
Which we pay for everybody who's a member of our club.
Yeah, and some of the benefits you get with that are access to all of the educational programming that's on the USDF website. All of the member discounts that are available to USDF members. They have historical reports you can access. So if you need to look up scores from a recognized show, you can. Let's see here.
And you'll be able to apply them to and you'll be able to apply your things that you take from USDF and stuff for your education.
Yes.
Our new program.
And the other thing is, once you have that membership, if you do decide to go to a recognized show, you're automatically eligible to compete in the Rider Awards divisions. You don't have to have a special membership for those. So that's a nice one too. So if you do like the equitation classes or like training level rider, you just need your scores to get the patch. It's a really cool patch. Let's see here. The other benefits you get from IDCTA membership are access to our educational events, year-end awards. The show is really, really fun in June if you can come to the show. Let's see here.
We also have a Zoom library that is only available to members, and we have an articles library that's only eligible for members to get to. And the articles library has all the articles we've done for the last 5 years or 6 years that have been in the scribe.
All the historical scribes,
yeah.
So as Molly was mentioning before we started, if you went to any of the Marjorie Denman lectures about getting started and showing, those are all available in the library as a resource. We have lots of really great eventing resources from Eric's Zoom meetings. We've got a whole slew of vet topics. So
the last 2 VETA topics have been amazing. The last one was about how to prevent lameness by a vet that she's with. I think she's on her own, isn't she? Wasn't she? Yeah. But they're all in there by title and by who the Zoom person is being interviewed. Jimmy Wofford, I think it was Jimmy that passed away just recently. Yeah.
I think the interview was a couple months before he died.
Yeah, just a few months before he died, and it was talking about his life and his growth as an individual through the eventing world. It was amazing.
We had Buck Davidson. We got lots of great eventing ones.
And then they had the eventing. We have 2 eventing ones from Olympic participants. One of them is Doug
Payne.
Doug Payne. He did a Zoom before he went to the Olympics, and after he came back, he did another one with us. It was real cool. Now you'll also have to remember that some of the Zooms they're a little rough at the beginning because they're not professionally done.
So hopefully this meeting will also be posted for your reference later. And
tomorrow.
Then we'll also post the link to the notes sheet with all the clickable links in it.
Okay.
Oh, before I forget, we are using all of the same dressage tests as last year. Nothing changed, which is great. Every 4 years, dressage tests change. So it's not for another 2.
Yeah, and the next ones to change
last year, so it'll be another 3 before eventing changes.
Next ones that change will be the FEI levels, which don't affect you guys.
Thank God. And I don't plan on rewriting the greenest grass test anytime soon, so it'll probably be the same for a while.
Anyway,
Or if any of you would like to take a stab at rewriting the greenest grass tests, feel free. I did the last ones. But, yeah.
any other
Cool.
questions?
Yeah. Oh, I will also put my contact information in the note sheet. Email's usually best because I teach school, so I can't always answer my phone. But I try to respond to emails within a day.
Me too,
Yeah.
when they come to me, but make them go to Cece for the school shows. Because
Yeah.
I always have to call her anyway.
I also do all the year-end awards, so it's real convenient that way too.
You're not going to be doing the educational ones.
Well, like score. I do all the tabulation, I should say, for the
I know.
scores.
So I will kind of give my little brief moment here on pitfalls, things
Sure.
that happen that seem terrible at the moment, but they aren't terrible, but they're sometimes avoidable.
Yeah.
And Cece's covered a couple of these issues. One is making sure your entry is in with ample time. The wonderful thing is if you give ample time, you can usually Cece, or in my case with my students, we can fix it. A lot of the schooling show people know each other, the people running them, so I can call and say, I know my person messed up, but can we fix this or whatever. So time is really your friend in doing all of these things. The other big issue for everyone, if you're going alone, especially, or in a group, but it's the same thing, practice your trailering.
Yeah.
The biggest, most embarrassing thing is when you cannot get your horse to or away from a show, and you give yourself the time and relax and know everybody deals with it if your horse doesn't get on, but they will, and you just need to breathe. But practice. It's a huge, great thing to do. Don't change anything before a show. Don't buy new boots the day before. Don't buy new clothes the day before, unless you've tried them on and ridden in them. Don't try a new helmet that might slip and fall over your eyes. If you are sun sensitive, you can ride in sunglasses. Have sunscreen, make your checklist of things that are going to be related to the elements. We have done shows in September or something, and you need a down coat. So if it's raining, you can get a cover for your show coat, or you wear it. If it's crazy hot, all of the ice fill shirts are designed that you can actually dip them in water and ride in them wet so that you are cool, or get a neckband. So think about those things, the elements and how they're going to affect you. And those are kind of my 2 cents. Don't freak out. Don't get too drunk before the night before your show.
Yeah.
And I would highly recommend that you get, memberships in
yes,
way early, so that you're not
Yes.
calling me or calling Cece and saying, oh my God, I forgot to get my membership. What can you do for me?
And then you avoid the $50 late fee too.
Correct.
right. And then if you don't get it in, your show doesn't count if it's not in before before.
That's
and
right.
then that
Yeah.
means you might not qualify for year end, and then you're bummed. So again, time is your friend. Use it wisely.
The other thing is bring copies of things with you, Coggins, vaccine reports, membership cards. That way you can at least show them, have a physical copy to show them.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's a big one too.
What
I think
many people do is they put a little folder together that has in there the current Coggins, the current shot records, any other documentation. If there's some special need that the horse has, any documentation that helps to be able to show the show manager in case they didn't ask for the right things on the, on the show bill.
And it can be also helpful to keep a copy of their breed papers in there in case there's special awards for a breed.
And people that are just starting to show, you might not know that when you go in, if you do stable, which I recommend if you are first showing, that you stable your horse so you can have hands-free and deal with things, that the venue will probably pull water buckets. You need to bring your own water bucket. If your horse is picky about water, bring a jug of your own water. Some horses don't like a change of the flavor of water. um, or have something that's in it so that they will like it.
Yeah. Another little trick is to put some electrolytes in the water that you have at home for a couple of days before you go to the show, and then take the same electrolyte and use it in the water that you get at the show. If you don't have a way of getting your own water there, it hides the taste of the water, and if you start it before you go to the show, the horse will be used to it and will recognize that taste instead of the sour eggs from sulfur or whatever.
You also will not necessarily have a saddle rack or a bridle rack, so have your hooks available. You might need a hook for your water bucket. It's always nice when it's there, but don't assume. There are some great checklists for horse shows that you can kind of find.
The other thing for stabling too, check with the show manager if they allow fans for the stalls and extension cords.
And if they are going to have shavings. You often need to bring or purchase shavings for your stall.
Yeah. And depending on the facility, they may want you to strip your stall at the end. Some of them you can leave it. Some of them you can just pick clean and leave extra shavings.
It's at Silverwood, for instance, if you strip your stall, you get a $40 return on your entry fees. I mean, on your stabling fees.
Oh, the other thing I should mention about Silverwood for mini event championships, that will be held in conjunction with a one-day event. So there will be a lot of people there. So it might be good to familiarize your horse with lots of busyness beforehand, because it will be busy.
So I have a couple riders on this meeting. I'd just like to point out to them that they do not have freedom to wear whatever they want.
Good for you, Denise.
Yes, I was always forced to wear a jacket. Even if it was 110, my trainer said you wear a jacket.
4 minutes in a jacket won't kill you.
They do make some fantastic mesh jackets now. So if you do get overheated,
sometimes
really
they're hard to get off after the 4 minutes. But
and the reason I say that is your pictures, you will be much more proud of your pictures later.
Speaking as a photographer, they will look much better too if you braid. Braiding always looks good. Most shows will have a photographer, to put in a little plug for myself. So fun, and the facilities are all very, very nice. If you have any questions about like stall size or what kind of footing is in the arena, please reach out. They're very, very happy to answer questions.
The only other thing I'd say is schooling shows are not often, but sometimes used for people that have green horses or green riders. So you will occasionally have horses that are appearing to be not well behaved. They may be very young. They may be new to that person, but schooling shows have a lot of different purposes. It's not just for an introduction to showing, but they're a great place to acclimate sometimes very fancy horses. You might see an incredibly great rider on a very young horse or something. Don't be daunted by that. Be aware of the different situations that there may be at that event, at that venue.
Just to give you some perspective, my very first dressage show, it was my horse's first dressage show. It was my first dressage show. We did not walk. We did a whole lot of trotting, a bit of cantering, and this was in greenest grass 1. I think we wound up with like a 38%, but we got over it. So it's not the end of the world. You guys are gonna have fun, I guarantee it. And these are just schooling shows, so try to keep that in perspective too. It's not the end of the world. So my favorite comment from that first season was walking disobedient, good recovery though.
For my first one was in Virginia, and the judge put her head out the door and said, Charleston, which was a racetrack, is down the road. We went so fast around the test that we were done in like half the time that you usually do.
Dressage?
What? Yeah, it was called speed dressage. Yeah.
Yeah.
I managed to stay on, and I managed to stay
Yeah.
in the ring only by luck.
Yeah. At the time, I was showing a 16-year-old, and after the end of one of my tests, she stuck her head out and goes, "How old is he?" And I'm like, 16. And she's like, "Oh, I thought he was like 4." Yeah, no. Yeah.
Anyway,
Like,
it's just
sorry.
it's a lot of fun, and it's a great way to get introduced to the
Mhm.
dressage world.
Yeah. Yeah. And if the judge is around at the end of the day, they're usually really good about answering questions. If you like have just a general question too, they always super appreciate those. I know if you go to one that Ken Borden is judging, he will probably give you a mini clinic right after your test. So those are always super helpful.
A couple of things to clarify on entries. There might be
Mhm.
some things that people don't understand. One will be, you'll see TOC, which is
Yes.
test of choice.
Mhm.
So it might say, I know that in ours, if you're doing second level, you can do a test of choice or a Western dressage test
Mhm.
of choice. We do like to know what test early enough to order the correct judges sheets.
Yes.
So that, again, time is good. But that's what that means. And if you want to do the same test twice, you can do training level 1 and test of choice training level 1.
Mhm.
And then you can have, although it'll be the same judge, if you're just working on a specific thing, that will give
Mhm.
you that opportunity.
Yeah. I've also done that before. If they don't offer a test of choice, I've entered amateur and open.
Yep.
And run the same test twice, just because we needed experience. So,
Mhm.
yeah. Yeah. Or if something happens, God forbid, you're eliminated, you can always ask and see if they have an opening later and run it in open or test of choice. So, yeah. Usually the judges are really good about that.
Mhm.
Cool. Any other questions before we leave?
Nope.
Well, thank you guys so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Hopefully we answered some questions, put your mind at ease. Like I said, I showed in the schooling show series for about 8 years. I've made almost every mistake possible, probably some that no one thought were possible. And I've been organizing them for about 10 years now. So if you have a question, someone's probably asked it before. Don't be afraid to ask. So
Thank you all.
Thank you.
yeah.
We really appreciate your interest, and I hope this was helpful. Thank you very much, Cece.
Yeah.
You were excellent. And thank you, Denise, for adding the extra comments.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
Yeah. And if you are coming to a show alone, don't be afraid to ask like someone to come with you. Just so you have some moral support. So because I showed alone for 6 years, and it
So
can
did
be
I.
tough. Yeah.
So did
it can
I.
be
And
tough.
it's tough.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Cool. Thank you guys so much. Hopefully we'll see you at a show this spring or summer or fall. So great.
okay,
Okay.
I'm turning off the
Bye.
Bye.